I have a truth to tell. A truth that I just realized about myself. I think over the last 4 days, I've been strongly fixated on the story of Derrick Jaxn and his wife. I think one of the things that fascinated me about it was the hypocrisy, the vehement way he protested against men who carried the exact same traits that he, from his videos, literally despised. The things that he would say in his videos, they resonated with a lot of people, not just because he said it, but because he actually, you could tell he was a man who actually believed the things that he was saying. I do a lot of manifestation with myself. And so when I speak things, I actually have to feel it at the same time in order for these things to come into existence for me. And the one thing I could tell about some of the times when Derrick Jaxn was speaking was that he believed in his heart of all hearts, like, you should never forgive a cheater. He would say stuff like that. He believed in his heart of all hearts that those type of men were unredeemable. And yet, inside of him, he knew that he was living this life that was contrary to this Derrick Jaxn. And that's sort of the reason why he even did a video on himself trying to separate himself and disassociate himself from the person who now has come manifold into the public as who and I put in quotation marks the true Derrick Jaxn is. Because even though Derrick Jaxn is a cheater, that is just an aspect of who he is as a person. Just like it's an aspect of us as well. It's because in a way we are all cheaters. And if it's something we don't admit to ourselves, we'll fail just like him. It's the hypocrisy. If we don't admit that, like, we could be in a relationship with someone and we could desire other people, that other people would be attractive to us. If we can't admit that to ourselves, we can allow ourselves to become a Derrick Jaxn, a person who has this pride, this self-esteem based upon a lie. And at the same time, we're allowing ourselves to fall or to lead down this other position, which is the cheating position, or the being dishonest with oneself. It's not the cheating, it's the being dishonest with oneself. The thought process that, the only reason you're not satisfied with this person is because they lack something sufficient for you. And so you go out and you seek it in someone else. And it's not your fault that you're seeking it in somebody else. It's just because this person over here is completely deficient. And so Derrick Jaxn, in a way, pushed all of those insufficiencies and all those inequities on his wife. And his wife felt that. She felt that in her soul. And she was the representation of everything that Derrick Jaxn hated. And so in his heart, he was like, I don't love this person. And so this is the reason why I'm cheating. I'm not sexually attracted to her. So she's the reason why I want to be over here. But he married what he wasn't sexually attracted to. He married into he married into a woman that kind of worshipped him as a god. That deep worship that she had for her father that passed away. When I was reading some of the things that she wrote on Instagram, how this traumatic injury happened in her life when she was 12, that her dad died traumatically, but the last word she expressed was her feelings about how she felt with him, that she felt like he didn't consider her his daughter, and she felt this inadequacy with him. And when she expressed that to him, he was in tears. And that was the last time she as a woman saw that man. And so when she got in a relationship with Derrick Jaxn, he was higher than life for her, right? For her, she felt him almost like that father figure that she lost. Derrick was strong where she was weak. Derrick was powerful. He was masculine of masculine to this woman, to her, to Janaea. And so for her, he fulfilled something deep inside of her, that father injury that she had. And so she placed him on that pedestal, just like she had her father, only he's alive, he's existing. And so just like she would have tried to please her father had he lived, she tried to please him. And Derrick, he needed that. Just like he needs his audience, he also needed his wife. Derrick can say he was unattracted to his wife. He can even believe that in his heart, because the only reason he believes that in his heart is because he can't believe I'm a cheater. He can't believe, like, I literally feel things for other women. I want to be with other women, and yet I still want my wife, right? He can't believe those two things exist, because that would make him a cheater. That would make him a hypocrite. So instead, he takes that hate and he places it inside of her and on her as the object of his hate. So when that occurred, and Derrick had given himself over to that, and his wife now represented everything that he despised about himself, and she had placed him on his pedestal, Derrick can admit that he actually loved his wife, that he didn't place her in that position by accident, that she wasn't some mistake that he made in his life or just got her pregnant, that he wanted everything that he did. You don't put the ingredients of a cake together. You don't place it inside of the oven and then say, oh, I don't want it. I mean, you can say you don't want it, but if you did everything to create a cake, it's what you want. It fulfills something deep inside of you. And I think with his wife, as well as with his audience had this larger than life belief in him as well. Like his wife, who idealized him at first, even seeing everything that he was doing, even seeing his hypocrisy, she was still very much in love with him, very much idolized him, just like her father. Derrick loved that idolization, that look in her eyes when she saw him, that desire that stated, like, you're everything I've ever wanted in my life. He loved that, just like he loved it from his audience that could only see these pieces of him that he would show as the best version of himself, as this best reflection of who, he wants to present to the world, this image. He married her because she believed that image. She truly believed that image, even when the things around her didn't show or manifest that. And in order to make sense of the fact that the world around her didn't manifest and didn't show everything that she believed him to be, she would take the fault, the things that he would do, and she would place it inside of herself too. Just like he would place it inside of her, she placed it inside of herself as well. Because that's the only way Derrick Jaxn could exist, and a person similar to her father could love her so much, right? Could be with her, could choose her, could make him his wife, and at the same time, this is the only way he could choose her and make her his wife, while she actually was able to feel these emotions and be with him. So this brings me to this point of hypocrisy. Lots of people I see are very upset. They're upset with the wife. They're upset with Derrick. And the main thing I hear people saying they're upset with is hypocrisy. And one of the things I want to completely dissuade everyone into believing is that you are not a hypocrite. In fact, everyone who notices something in another person, you're only recognizing what's in yourself. And you can judge it and you can hate whatever it is that you actually were able to see. But the thing that you're hating is in you. And the more that you hate it, you're telling yourself that you don't have it. And when you tell yourself that you don't have it, when you see it come up in yourself, instead of you taking ownership of it and changing it, you blame what it is that what characteristics that you have, what traits that you have, whether or not, that you're deceptive or you lie sometimes, or whatever it is that you do, right? Whatever characteristic trait that you hate about yourself. Some people hate to be cowards, some people hate to be afraid. Some people hate to be vulnerable. So whatever that trait is, when you recognize that trait in yourself, you deny it. And when you deny it, that trait magnifies, it becomes bigger. This other image of Derrick Jaxn, the cheater, it was bigger than life, larger than he can contain it at a certain point. He couldn't even contain his image because Derrick Jaxn, the cheater, had magnified itself because he denied him so much and in so many ways, and felt in his heart of hearts he wasn't a cheater because I never loved this woman. He loved that woman. To him, she represented the idolation that the world in and of itself had for him. That he was this image. He found someone who intimately believed the things that he was portraying out in the world, who was willing to believe all of those things about him, the goodness, everything about him that seemingly appeared good. She knew him intimately and was willing to believe that. That's not something he could get from other women. He couldn't get another woman who saw everything that he was doing, saw the whole show, and would delude herself so much so because she needed to believe in this hero, this larger than life person, the one like the father that she had lost. She would delude herself so much so to believe that whatever it is, whatever reason that he's creating this hypocrisy, it's not because he of himself just is that way. It's because of who I am. And so she still would have this larger than life adulation, like almost like she's with God, like she's with this gigantic, like she's just with an angel. Like in her eyes, she felt that. In Derrick, in his heart of hearts, this is which really fraction. He doesn't like to be hated. This right here, where the whole world knows everything about him and they're sending him all this negativity and hate, that's his worst fear. That's why he chose a wife that would delude herself a lot, enough to believe that Derrick was great, Derrick was excellent. And if Derrick messed up, it's because God couldn't keep him straight because of his position with God. It was because the enemy kept him from his mission. But it wasn't because of Derrick, because Derrick is so great, right? She will blame everything, even herself, than to blame Derrick, because she needs to believe in Derrick. She needs to believe he is excellent. He is perfect. She needs to believe in his perfection, and Derrick needs to believe in his perfection too. So these people coexist in the same space. And I don't say this to judge anyone, because they both fulfill something deep inside. Like both of them together fulfill each other so intimately and so deeply. It's almost a shame that the world is causing these people to face themselves so harshly, because we can't face the hypocrisy in our own selves, in our own lives. That truth is, like, we have our Derricks, and it may not be the Derrick that cheats, but it may be a Derrick that does something else that's, undesirable to us, but he fulfills so many other areas of our life, and in such a way that we will deny that other area exists. Because if anyone ever knows that this is something else that he does, suddenly it calls into question our character, because we're willing to accept something like that, because we're getting fulfilled on so many levels. We can't tell the people about all of these other things that we're getting from the situation. We can only people will only see that bad thing. So that made me think about like what hypocrisy was and why it is that we hate it so much. So what I figured out is hypocrisy is the inability to deny in ourselves the things we see in others. Hypocrisy is the inability to deny in ourselves, the inability to acknowledge in ourselves the things we see in others. Because what we see in others, what we judge, it just creates it more in ourselves. It like hides it from ourselves. Because if we judge someone else on this particular issue, if we judge someone else on like being played the fool, oh, you such, girl, you so stupid, blah, 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 because you put up with this or that. I would never let them speak to me like this or that. And so you'll actually leave a situation that's pretty good for you because someone hurt your feelings and said something that was bad to you one day, and it's from their childhood issues, their problems. They grossly said something that they felt in their soul, but it can have nothing to do with you. It can just be something they said because of how they felt about themselves deep on the inside, but you accepted it in yourself, and you accepted the pain and injury of whatever it is they said, and because you felt a way about it, you leave everything that's good, everything that's fulfilling you in all these other ways, because you can't accept in yourself that you can also love a person. A person can be good to you like 97% of the time, or even 90% of the time. But you can't stay because of that one bad thing that person may have done, because you can't reconcile to yourself. You've said multiple times, no one can talk to me ever like this. No one can do this to me. And I'm going to be in a relationship with this person. Right? And so you can't stay. You can't receive all of the other things that you need to receive, because you've already said in yourself that if someone does this one thing to you, and you take it as something being done to you, you don't take it as them displaying themselves or them doing an injury onto themselves. You take it onto yourself, and you say that if this one thing is done, then all of a sudden, all of these other things that you love, you cannot enjoy. And you created that hypocrisy in your life because you refuse to accept that portion of yourself that is willing to like put up with a little bit of stuff in order to get these soul needs met. And we have attachment needs that are so deep, so deep. The way we're bonded to one another, like this illusion of separation, it doesn't even exist. There's really no separation between us. We're really bonded to one another. And when you find those people that fulfill these special links in your heart, letting them go over trivial matters, especially over matters that you haven't like reconciled in yourself, the hypocrisy or the idea that, you know, you won't put up with this or that. Like, that's a tragedy. That's a very strong tragedy. Not only does it not fulfill, you know, that person's need and desire to be loved deeply, right? It doesn't create a space for intimacy, because whenever that person reveals certain aspects of themselves, they have to fear that you will desert them, that you aren't really committed to that situation and to them as a person. And that's deeply injurious, not just to them, but to yourself, because in your heart, you believe also that you are a disposable individual, and that love is not permanent. It's something that's just this finite thing, and it really doesn't exist. It deludes us into believing that the attachments that we had, you know, they can just go away. You know, they can just be another person to fill that spot. And yeah, other people can come and they can fulfill that spot, but they're gonna also create those same injuries over again. They'll create those same injuries over again until you do the work to be able to overcome whatever hypocrisy that lies within yourself, whatever stuff you're not facing, to be able to accept all aspects of yourself, to be able to accept that, like the idea that we can't accept any injury from other people brings us to the point where we just can't, we're so fragile, we can't accept the idea that someone would do something unloving towards us. That unloving act means that the love, even though it's shown in so many other ways, doesn't exist at all. That it was some delusion in our mind, some fantasy, right? Those connections that we had, and they're not fantasies. They're not delusions. When you feel those deep, heartfelt connections, they're not fantasies, they're not delusions. And it's important not to deny it, because when we deny that, what we're saying is that we're disposable to ourselves. We're actually embedding inside of our soul that we are disposable. That this love we thought was there never existed. We were deluding ourselves. And I don't think we're deluding ourselves. And no, this is not like the doctrine of cheaters or whatnot, and like, oh, a person can cheat on you or whatnot. But this is what I will say on any issue. Like, I'm not going to place my value and my self-esteem on anybody's sexual parts, right? Like, not on a woman's vagina, not on a man's penis. I can say that some people to us may not be our cup of tea, where they feel certain aspects of our life. And for them to cheat, for them to do certain things to us, we could say in our hearts, like, hey, I could kind of do without this person, because like on all of these other levels, I'm really not satisfied. And it's not that this person's a bad person, but that soul satisfaction really isn't there, right? That attachment, that connection really isn't there. So, this may be my time to go, my time to leave, only because like all of these other places are not being satisfied to me. But if we find someone deeply satisfying, like the type of connection I believe Derrick and his wife have found, when you stay with someone that long and you're going back and forth with one another for over 12 years, that's something there that the outside world, we will never understand. That's something we won't understand unless we're dealing with our own thing. We won't truly understand what it is and the connection that those two feel with one another. I truly believe the only reason Derrick made this era where his public persona and his private life came to a forefront was because he was truly trying to work things out with his wife. He was truly trying to be this person who he portrayed himself to be. He wanted his wife to see him in a certain way that she no longer saw him in, and she left him for over a year. And he understood, like, she was checked out in her heart of all hearts. She didn't believe anything good about him, and he couldn't stand for that woman, that small little woman who he thought was insignificant, to not be able to see everything good in him like she did before. Some people say it's because, she was getting an attorney and she was actually filing for divorce. The reason why I don't believe that is because actually this is more injurious to him than the divorce would have been. If he divorced her, he would only have to give up half of everything, right? Right now, when he cut off that other woman that he was, building up this anticipation of this affair for over 10 years, when he cut her off and created this entry inside of her that made her come to the forefront and try to antagonize his wife, when he cut that other woman off and did that to her, instead of doing what most men do and what Derrick has done in the past, which is like just drag on the situation, pretend like you care about the person, and then slowly cut them off. When he did it that way, he knew he was creating a ripple effect that would come back to kind of bite him in the butt, because this is the type of man who's very keen of the world, and he understands how people work. That's why he's able to tell women what it is that they want to hear. If you get to the point where you're able to tell a person what it is they want to hear, whether it be a man or a female, because men want to hear certain things too. When you get to that point when you're able to tell people what they want to hear, and you're able to give people the lies that they actually feed to themselves, and believe about themselves, you can control them. And that's one of the reasons why his wife was able to control him and get that ring that nobody else was able to get, and to be in that position that nobody else was able to be into, because her control over him, and she didn't even know what the control was. She didn't even know what it was that kept bringing him back to her, even though he said he wasn't desirous of her, he didn't love her, he didn't want her, and things like that. He did. He couldn't accept that he wanted her and that he needed, what he needed from her was that look she gave him, was that belief that she had in him, that he was the best person in this whole entire world. That adulation he gets from being in front of an audience, he was getting that in his personal life. And that did something for him, because he's a deeply injured man who can't face all the aspects of himself and still believe himself to be a good person. Derrick doesn't like himself, just like his wife doesn't like herself. And his wife is a reflection of his hate. His wife is a reflection of his hate he has towards himself. So I'm just basically saying this, and I'm using this story as a way to just start having conversations with one another. You know, I don't even want to really kind of put my face out there and put myself with these words, because I understand that many of us are so deeply hidden from ourselves, and that hidden self manifests itself in the judgments we have towards others. We judge other people because of their sexuality, you know, the things that they're willing to do that we aren't willing to do. We judge people for that because in our heart of our hearts, we have that inside of us. We have that desire to be able to be as, if not do the same things that they do, to be as free as they are about doing them, right? And so we will judge other people and then hide that other aspect of ourselves away. And then the same thing that we hide away is the same thing that we may view. Like, you ever notice sometimes that many times that the men who are totally fixated on homosexuality, on hating other men who engage in that, the people who are fixated on that be the closeted homosexuals? Well, if you notice that about men and about people who fixate on that type of thing, notice it in yourself. Whatever it is that you fixate on that you actually hate, if you hate liars, if you hate cowards, if you hate cheaters, if you hate, like, notice if you're hating something, if you're truly repulsed by something, if you're truly judging it as an evil, right? Notice that you display that in some way in yourself. If you hate cheaters, notice that you display that in yourself. Because, like, I can honestly say in the past, I've said I've hated cheaters, right? And I don't think I've ever been with a cheater or anything like that. But I've said I've hated cheaters. But when I've been in relationships, the part of myself that I couldn't accept is that being in a relationship didn't make me unattracted to other people. And when I would feel attraction to other people, I'd automatically think something was deficient in the people that I'm dealing with and the person I'm having this nice soul connection with, because it couldn't be me. It couldn't be something inside of me that just feels an attraction to another person, because I judged that in other people. I couldn't just accept, hey, this is something you feel. This is something you felt. And it has nothing to do with the person you're with. You're still getting these soul needs met with this particular individual. You feel and you think this way, not because you're uncontent here and not because this person isn't satisfying you, but because that's just normal. You're going to have feelings somewhere else. Be honest with yourself about those things. Be honest with yourself. And when you're honest with yourself, those feelings kind of go away. Like you don't feel it anymore. You just don't feel it. You think about it and you're like, oh, that's interesting. I feel that way. What do I like about this person? And then you think about what it is that you actually admire in that person that makes that person attracted to you. You allow yourself to linger in that. And then you can actually go and talk. Like if you have an intimate relationship, you can actually talk to your partner about the feelings that made this person attractive to you. And if that person is fulfilled within themselves, they don't feel a hate for you because you felt attracted to someone else. They understand that maybe those qualities were present in them at the beginning, right? And they've started to wane on those kind of qualities that made you seek it out or look at it in someone else, that got you to visibly see it in someone else. And that visible manifestation of you seeing something that you liked, that is still present in your partner but not activated at this point, created an attraction. And if that person is secure in themselves, they can accept that feedback, and you can accept, the guilt and the shame of having that feeling, and both of you can change it around, and that person can now highlight those qualities that you see in that other person that you originally saw in them, and that you are still attracted to and still want and desire. So I say this to say, like, we all need some very, very deep soul work. And I'm not saying this to give men excuses for cheating or women excuses for cheating, or cheating as an excuse for anything. I'm only saying this so that we can allow ourselves and allow other people to remain in their relationships. They let them be. Just let them be. There are things that we just don't understand. And when we're on the outside, we're not living in a 3D society. We only see what other people show us. Just like we only saw what Derrick was showing us. We didn't see this other facet of him. The only people who saw it were the people who were intimately involved with it. That's the only people who saw this portion of Derrick, right? Or really who had proof of it. So we have to understand that in that same way, we could be closely affiliated with someone. They could be our sister, they could be our child, they could be our mother. We could be closely affiliated with someone and love them deeply and not see certain intimate facets of them that another person's able to see who's combined to them in that way. And those things that each other are meeting, we don't understand. We don't understand what it is that they're fulfilling inside of one another. And on the outside, we may see something that occurs, and to us, that's the only thing we see. But we're not seeing all the inner work that those two are doing together just by being in association and in fulfillment with one another. And for us, we're saying, like, repel, to get away. And what we're doing when we do that is we're causing fractures within ourselves. Like, the next relationship for us is going to be difficult because now, since we've judged this outer aspect of ourselves and said, oh, we're not going to put up with this, or we're not going to put up with that. Let's say someone were to come to you and say, hey, I didn't cheat, but I did find something I saw that was attractive in this other person. Instead of, you would accept this as some deep soul injury within yourself. And instead of saying, okay, so he found something that's attractive in this other person. Maybe, like, he was attracted to me, so what is he attracted to about me that he found in this other person? Instead of us being able to see the qualities in this other person in ourselves, the thing about it, we will see nothing but our animus against this idea of somebody wanting someone else. We will see the hate of ourselves and the inadequacies of ourselves, thinking that something is wrong with us because this person wants this person, because we've created this judgment around this particular emotion, this particular feeling someone has, and thereby creating the act to occur. So we all, this is very deep soul work. We all need to do this. We all need to examine in our lives where it is we see hypocrisy. Like, I remember there are times in my life where, I would see hypocrisy in people who tell lies, right? Like I just like, I can't stand a liar. I can't stand a liar. I can't stand a liar. And that caused me in my life to be overly open with people, right? To display things about myself and to tell things about myself that people really didn't have the intimacy and the connection with me to be privy to that information. But because I couldn't stand a liar, which a liar is somebody that holds back information, probably information a person needs to know, or information that is not anyone's business, right? But that can be a liar. Both aspects could be a liar. Omission or commission is a liar. Because I couldn't recognize that facet in myself, that I deny, I lie myself, either by commission or omission. When I saw myself, when someone asks me a direct question, I felt the necessity to answer, even when that information wasn't something they should know. Because I couldn't accept within myself that a portion of me is a liar. A portion of me is going to protect myself and not tell everybody everything about me. As I should. So I'm just saying, in all aspects, accept yourself. Accept that a portion of you is a killer. Accept that, just accept that, there are different, many facets of you. Accept, you may not be a rapist, but you may be a person. If you can't accept that aspect of yourself, you may be a person who overtakes the will of others. What we've learned about rape is using your power in order to coerce someone into an act, sexual, right? Can a woman be a rapist? Can a woman coerce a person who doesn't want to sleep with her to sleep with him? Yes, a woman can be a rapist. A woman can coerce a man who doesn't want to be with. She can be like, you have such a small thing. She can guilt. She can manipulate. She can make the sexual act about his prowess and demean him to a point where he feels the necessity to complete. All of those things are rape. When you are infringing upon the will of others, you are raping them of their choice, whether it's sexually or in other aspects. And so if you if you hate something so much, you are not going to see when you do it in your life, and you're not going to be able to change it and stop yourself from doing it. You're not going to be able to change yourself from infringing upon the will of others, and then therefore being a rapist. All the people out there who hate child molesters and child abusers, do you treat children as if they're not capable of their own agency and their ability to make mistakes? Do you try to hinder a child from do you take a child's finger out their mouth when they're sucking their thumb because they're going to mess up their teeth? Do you physically remove a child from being able to do things that would not be permanently damaging to that child, just something that they would learn from and they would grow from? Do you take over that child's will? Do you tell a child to remain in a child's place, not allowing that child to vocalize their thoughts and concerns? Because that's emotionally abusive. Do you whip a child? Do you have to place hands and abuse a child to, whether it's a little bit or a lot, whether it's just a slap on the back of the hand or pinch behind the shoulder? Do you do any of those things to a child? Because all of those things are abusive. There are other ways to help that child to recognize, to get the ability to recognize danger, to get that child to recognize their feelings and their emotions, and to be able to control their own actions. There are other ways to do that doesn't necessitate us being physical with any children, or us being emotionally abusive to children and overpowering them with our words and the fact that they need us to love them. All of us need people to love us. All of us are like children in that way. That's why we're so protective of our public image, because we need everyone to love us. And that's an aspect of ourselves we don't we don't like either. And I think that's one of the reasons why we're so hard on children to begin with, because children are open. They're open about the fact that they need love. And that's something like, I see a lot of people in these black women spaces, you know, they're talking about how black women, you know, that we're such suckers and we're so male identified, and, you know, we're so desperate for male validation and things like that. And yeah, we are. We're very desperate for male validation because many of us have grown up without fathers, right? And so just like Janaea and Derrick, Jaxn meets that fatherly image that she has, even though Jaxn is not a father. And for him, she meets that idolation that he feels like he needs, right? So we're doing the same thing as women, as a population as a whole. Men are meeting those needs for us. But if we don't admit that we have those needs to be met, we're going to be doing what Janaea is doing. And we're going to be finding that in an unhealthy way. You know, it's all right for us to need and to want to be validated by men, to want to be picked, you know, to want to have these deep, intimate connections. And the first thing we need to do in order to not be so desperate about it is just to acknowledge and love that need about ourselves, that love that need to feel connected. And then it won't feel like such a dirty thing. And then we won't have to speak so vocally and so angrily about it, because we have people that build up this attraction within us and this desire within us. And, you know, like, we are doing things behind closed doors that other people would accept. And so we have this need to, like, talk about other people and how they live their relationship and deny the fact that we're going through something behind closed doors. Like some of these women who talk about how men do so bad and the things that men do and why do we like men. Yeah, they're single now, but when they were in relationships, they were probably in relationships with men who had children with 10 other women. They were one of 10 other women that he was steadily rotating one of his baby mamas in a situation. And they loved this man's dirty draws. But when that would come forward, they had to deny that their affection for this particular person. And I'm not saying that I'm just saying that what created that necessity for that broken individual, the one that has the 10 baby daddies, was the fact that you denied your need and desire to be wanted by a person like him. You denied your desire for some of his characteristics. Maybe his characteristics was a false sense of conceit or whatnot. You needed that kind of arrogance and that kind of pompous confidence that he appeared to have, right? And you desired it. You desired it. You desired it so much that you overlooked all of these other different aspects of that individual. Whatever it was, the fact that you denied that need for that particular aspect of yourself, it made you overlook these other different things. I speak right now because what I would like for people to do is just to acknowledge all the ways, all the facets of themselves, so they can be complete and whole as an individual, to stop judging certain aspects of yourself. And you know, if you judge it, just judge certain aspects of yourself because you judge it in other people. Because when you do that, you create hypocrisy. Judgment creates hypocrisy. It really does. And then those judgments manifest in your life, and now you can't overcome whatever it is that you don't like, that you see in another person you don't like, because you can't even acknowledge it exists in you. Now, knowing the ways in which, child abuse can exist, I can now not abuse a child in any form or any way, because I know it's possible, it's within me to be able to abuse a child, because I know that child abuse is a product of just hurting an individual that's in different developmental states. And another aspect I noticed, like, if we just recognize the fact that, we have knowledge deficits, and we're all not there. Like, we're all developmentally not on the same page. We could be 30 and we could be at a developmental age of somebody of 12, somebody of 16, or somebody of 18. We're all not developmentally at the same place. If we could just have compassion for one another, and instead of judging people by their chronological age, actually judge them based upon their experience, based upon their cognitive understanding, and to respect their achievements and their life based upon that, we can actually respect ourselves. We won't actually be so hard on ourselves when we make mistakes, when we make errors because of our experience or inexperience in that area. We don't have to feel ashamed of that, because we don't judge other people who make mistakes, who aren't, aficionados on certain areas of their life, because that's not an area they practiced it. And so now when they're starting to get that practice, they're making mistakes, as they should be, because this is how it works. You have to develop every area of your life. So judgment is one thing that's definitely I'm talking about. Judgment creates hypocrisy, but hypocrisy is mostly what I hear people saying that they despise about the things that they're seeing right now. And for a moment, I gave myself to that sort of slight anger, and then I wound up feeling a lot of compassion for Derrick and his wife. Both of them are quite dissociated from themselves. His wife and Derrick, they're both the same person. They're both the same person. Very disassociated from who they are as a person. She's disassociated from her anger, from her feelings of inadequacy, from her feelings of just feeling lack of love, and very, very depressed. She's disassociated from all her feelings, and Derrick he's disassociated from the idea that he's the villain in this story. He doesn't get to be. He created this image of himself as the Dark Knight, as this handsome black Dark Knight, and now he doesn't get to live in that image. Instead, he has to live in the fact that, like, he's the predator. He's the person people warn their daughters about. He's the person to stay away from. He wanted to so desperately to be the hero. He was the hero to the world for a long time. He was a hero to his wife. And now he doesn't get to be that. And that in and of itself is creating a dissociation, and the reason why he's creating a video about himself trying to further dissociate himself from it. And we're throwing out these terms like narcissist, and we're throwing out these other terms, brainwashed, cold, and delusional, and things like that. And they're just terms. The truth is, both of them are going through the same thing in different ways. And that is, they just aren't facing who they are. And they're not completely accepting themselves. She's not completely accepting all her emotions, all her anger, rightful anger, right? Because she's given a lot of herself, and she's gotten very little back, and so that's created a lot of bitterness and anger in her. Like, why won't I be loved? Why can't I be loved? Am I so unlovable? I have always been unloved. That's creating a lot of hate and animosity and longing and desperation inside of her, right? And for him, who created this image that was to be loved, he really wanted a soul love. And that's why he made this mistake, because he wanted a soul love. If he'd have just accepted the image, he would still be, in a way, loved. And I put that in quotation marks because, we just loved the image. We didn't love the actual person, right? But he wanted to be loved for an actual person. And his wife, even though she saw him like with Jesus' eyes, she say, right? She loved him. She seen something in him. And when he took upon that image of like, I'm taking upon this Christianity, I'm going to change how I speak in videos. I'm not going to be so harsh. I'm going to be reasonable. I saw his content over that year's time. I saw his content get a whole lot better and a lot deeper in a way. I saw his content get better. And I think it was because he was working on these things. I think the way we're looking at it from the outside, because we're just finding out about things that they've been working on for a very long time, I think it's quite one-dimensional. I don't think we're seeing everything. And I think the reason we're not seeing everything is not because everything's not visible right at this moment, because it all is. It's because there are things that we're seeing here we don't want to recognize in ourselves. We don't want to recognize the delusion we have in ourselves. Like, you know, some of us want to remain single and we want to remain by ourselves so we can truly be convinced in our heart of our hearts that the stuff other people put up with, we will never put up with. We are such, you know, independent women, and, you know, we love our independence. And nobody can make a fool out of us and things like that. We want to be convinced we will be nobody's fool. But in being nobody's fool, we're also no one's love. And we aren't able to fulfill those love needs that we have because we don't want to admit that we have them. And that's so sad. It's sad on so many levels. So if this makes me seem like a pick me, I'm gonna say pick me. I love dealing intimately with someone and figuring out different aspects of my personality and things about myself and growing as an individual. And I think we should all want that. And I think we all do. I think we all want a deep attachment. And if you don't, like, I'm not saying you should, but I feel like that's just a human need, because even when we're born, there have been studies that have done, if we don't have those feelings, like if we don't have attachment, if we're not held when we're babies, we literally die. So love is actual need. I think we displace it because it's not physiological, right? It's not something we can actually say, okay, you're hungry, so, you know, like you were starved to death. But without love, we literally get sick. Our bodies, you know, like we get sick within our bodies. Like we have physical manifestation. Like don't you know, like when you're not feeling good about something, you can get a stomach ache. You like your body literally has pains that happen off of emotions. So don't you think prolonged longing, prolonged motions over a long period of time that's being unsatisfied will create dis-ease inside of the body? So much so it'll manifest itself in a physical way. And that physical manifestation, that will cause you to pass. Because it will. I'm just saying, just recognize it in yourselves. Don't take this story that's happening out right now and feel, you know, so proud of yourself that you're not like being played a fool, right? Or so, you know, angry about the situation that he's such a hypocrite, when you're a hypocrite in a lot of ways in your life, right? Don't do A or B. Just observe. See what you're feeling from everything that's occurring outside of you, and see how it matches with your life, how it resonates with who you are, and how in your ways you display certain actions that you're seeing. When we were able to recognize it within ourselves, we're able to change it. Like if it's something that, like, oh, that doesn't feel right to actually display that, to do that. Because who wants to be an abuser? Like, who wants to be a child abuser? Who wants to be a rapist and things like that? So if you don't overcome people's consent, if you allow people to feel the way they feel and to live life the way they do, you're not raping people of their choice, right? So you'll never become a rapist. But if you can't recognize that that's the steps that it would take to become a rapist, you'll be doing all of those other things in every area of your life. And yet saying, oh, I hate a rapist and I'm never a rapist. And you're raping everybody you see. You're raping them of their ability to have a different opinion than yours, because yours has to be the main one. You are raping. You're taking people's choices away. So I'm just saying, again, I will say it again. Please don't judge. Not for someone else's benefit, but for your own. Listen, look, feel, see what comes up inside of you when you hear certain things, and then see why. Why do you notice something in someone else? Whenever you notice something in someone else, it's in you. You're because that's the only way you can notice it. If you notice fear, the only reason you know this is fear is because you've seen it, you felt it in yourself, you see it in you, right? So when you notice something in them, it's in you. It is in you. And if it's something that you notice is like, ooh, I noticed something there, and that's not something that resonates with me, that's not something that aligns with me, I don't like that, then try to figure out and find out where it's at in your life. Examine it in your life. I may not like this, but there's an aspect of it that has to be within me. How in my life is this manifesting inside of me? Find it. Search it out. And then that's when you can actually start to do away with it. Because if you disassociate yourself from it, if you're like, no, this is not me, I will never do anything like this, you cannot see it now. Now you can't see it. Now you're blinded to it inside of yourself. And now it's there. It's another person that's doing this other thing, and you're not in control of it at all. So I'm just saying, gather control of yourself, people. Really help yourself. Don't judge, not because, for someone else. It's for you. It's for your benefit. It's for your growth. Don't judge because you create the hypocrite when you do. So that's it. That's all I have to say.